Hey, this is Leah Wilson from Smart Pop Books, and I'm very excited to present the following propos for The Girl Who Was on Fire, a collection of YA authors on Suzanne Collins' Hunger Games trilogy. We live in an era of blockbuster young adult book series: Harry Potter, Twilight, and now the Hunger Games. All of these series have certain things in common: compelling characters, complex worlds you want to spend time exploring, a focus on family and community. But the Hunger Games is by far the darkest of the three. In Twilight, love conquers all. Bella ends the series bound eternally to Edward and mother to Renesmee without having to give up her human family or Jacob in the process. In Harry Potter, the world is returned to familiar stability after Voldemort's defeat. And before we leave them, we see all of the main characters happily married, raising the next generation of witches and wizards. In The Hunger Games, while Katniss may conclude the series similarly married and a mother, the ending's much more bittersweet. Her sister and Gale are both lost to her in different but equally insurmountable ways. The world is better than it was, but there are hints that this improvement is only temporary, that the kind of inhumanity we saw in the districts under Capitol rule is the true status quo. In other words, The Hunger Games ends in a way that feels surprisingly adult. At its core, The Hunger Games is a coming-of-age story, and not just for Katniss. It's a coming-of-age story for Panem, and in a way for us as readers as well. The series pushes us to grow up and take responsibility, both personally and politically, for our choices. That's a heavy message to take away from any book series, but an important one for all of us, whether we ourselves would be shelved under young adult or not. The pieces in The Girl Who Was on Fire don't cover everything in The Hunger Games. They couldn't cover everything. But they do tease out at least a few of the series' most thought-provoking ideas. Together, they provide an extended meditation on the series and its world, on Katniss and our response to her, on love and family and sacrifice and survival. While editing this anthology, I was alternately surprised, fascinated, and moved to tears, a tribute not only to The Hunger Games itself, but also to the talented YA writers whose work is collected here. And I hope that you too will find something fresh to feel or think about in these pages, that The Girl Who Was on Fire encourages you to debate, question, and experience the Hunger Games in a whole new way.
Hi, my name is Adrienne Kress, and I'm the author of 2 children's novels, Alex and the Ironic Gentleman, and Timothy and the Dragon's Gate. I'm also currently putting on the finishing touches to my very first young adult novel called The Friday Society, which comes out sometime next year. Now, I am not just an author, I am also a fan of many things, but in this particular case, of the Hunger Games. So I was absolutely thrilled when I was asked to contribute an essay analyzing this really insightful and amazing series that I'm just totally crazy about. So my essay in the anthology is called The Inevitable Decline of Decadence, which I think is a pretty self-explanatory title. Basically having a look at the decadent society of the capital and how such societies, even though everybody at the moment thinks, okay, this time, it's totally going to work, inevitably they totally collapse in and of themselves. So I talk a bit about why and analyze a bit about the concept of decadence. So I'm going to read to you a little excerpt from my essay. It's just a little example of decadence as seen through Katniss's eyes of the capital. Food is a huge metaphor in the books. The country is even called Panem, which means bread. Food is life. We learn that it is what initially brought Katniss and Peeta together as children when he saved her life by giving her slightly burnt bread. Food gave her hope when she and Gale were able to hunt and provide for her family. Food becomes a symbol of strength to her in the arena when, during her first Hunger Games, District 11 sends her bread as a gift of gratitude. Food is what keeps people alive. It's what shows others that they care. And so when we see food treated as trash, when we see people simply throw food away because they have too much of it, we understand that we are witnessing the ultimate display of decadence and overindulgence. Life being tossed aside. For each piece of food wasted, we, the reader, can only imagine how much that food would have helped someone in one of the districts. Nothing in the entire trilogy achieves a more disgusting display of decadence than the party in Catching Fire, where people eat as much as they possibly can, only to vomit back up so they can eat more. As Katniss says, "All I can think of is the emaciated bodies of the children on our kitchen table as my mother prescribes what the parents can give. And here, in the capital, they're vomiting for the pleasure of filling their bodies again and again." Here we have another clear allusion to ancient Rome, where it was commonplace to vomit up one's meal in order to partake of more, or at least to vomit post-meal after having partaken of too much. As Cicero is thought to have said of Julius Caesar, he expressed a desire to vomit after dinner, as if eating until one threw up was the way things worked, and not just representative of overindulgence. So there you go, just a little taste, no pun intended, of my essay. I hope you read the whole thing. I also hope you read all the essays in the book, because they're all very insightful and interesting, and some are pretty funny at the same time. And yeah, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy it. Bye.
Hi, I'm Brita Spain, the young adult author of the Dark Divine series. My essay for The Girl Who Was on Fire is called Community in the Face of Tyranny, How a Boy with a Loaf of Bread and a Girl with a Bow Toppled an Entire Nation. Here's an excerpt. One of President Snow's greatest mistakes, the one that led to the downfall of the Capitol, was his lack of attention to District 12. It seems as though the Capitol started out equally stringent in each of the districts. Katniss's mother occasionally refers to much darker days in the past, but over time it became lax in 12. After all, 12 is the poorest, hungriest district, without even much hope of winning the Hunger Games to bring in more food rations. The poorer citizens in that district are relegated to the seam, where they have almost nothing to look forward to other than living and dying in the mines. And as the most downtrodden of the districts, 12 is pretty much ignored by the capital. It wasn't worth wasting precious resources on, such as electricity, so the fence was rarely a threat to anyone who dared go under it. It wasn't worth wasting the best peacekeepers on either, so after a while, the capital stopped caring to send disciplined and obedient peacekeepers there. This fostered an environment where a black market could exist, providing a gathering place for the people to exchange goods and information, a place where a budding sense of community was allowed to grow, even between the braver townsfolk who visited the market and the peacekeepers who came for food and enjoyment. At the beginning of the Hunger Games, most people in 12 are still too afraid to take advantage of the lapses of the capital's judgment concerning their district. But out of this negligent environment comes an unlikely heroine named Katniss Everdeen, a girl with an uncanny and often unwitting ability to create a sense of community wherever she goes. Originally, when I looked back at the text of the first Hunger Games book, I was tempted to say that the first act of community in the novel, after Katniss's father died, that helped Katniss become the kind of person she was before she was even reaped for the Hunger Games, was when she formed a hunting alliance with Gale. Instead of fending for themselves, they worked together to share the burden of feeding their loved ones. The glue of mutual need bonded them together, and they created not only a community, giving among each other, but the strongest form of community that exists, a family. But what dawned on me after rereading all 3 books in the trilogy again was that the first act of community in the face of tyranny, that was the catalyst for who Katniss became as a person, was an act of community she was a recipient of, rather than the creator of. It was the incident involving the boy with the bread.
Hi, I'm Sarah Darren Littman, the author of YA novels Urge, Life After, and the upcoming Wanna Go Private, all from Scholastic Press. My essay is called The Politics of Mockingjay, and I definitely come to this series from very much a political perspective. Maybe it's because of my political background, but when I read Suzanne Collins' Hunger Games series, the focus was never about Team Gale or Team Peeta the way it was for so many readers. The romance was a subplot. I majored in political science in college, and when I'm not writing books for teens, I'm a columnist for Hearst newspapers and a writer and blogger for sites like Connecticut News Junkie and My Left Nutmeg. To my mind, the Hunger Games trilogy was always more about the system, a political system that would not just allow, but would require children to fight to the death in televised games. According to an interview in School Library Journal, Collins said she drew her inspiration for the Hunger Games from imagining a cross between the war in Iraq and reality TV, after flipping through the channels one night and seeing the juxtaposition between the coverage of the war and reality TV programming. While I've never had the privilege of meeting Suzanne Collins, and I have absolutely no idea as to her political views, I don't think the uncanny similarity between the themes she took on in Mockingjay and the issues we as a nation struggled with during the Bush administration's war on terror is an accident. Reading Mockingjay, I relived through Katniss some of the helplessness, frustration, anger, and confusion that I felt during the 8 years of the Bush administration. The same sense of looking at my country through the looking glass that I continue to feel when I see certain religions and ethnic groups being demonized by politicians and the media. I experienced that same helplessness I felt when I read about American citizens being designated as enemy combatants and held for years without the right of habeas corpus. The same anger that coursed through my veins when I read that our government was using waterboarding, a recognized form of torture for which we prosecuted Japanese officers after World War II, yet using the Orwellian doublespeak of enhanced interrogation techniques in an attempt to desensitize us to this departure from both our national values and international law. Perhaps this is why this book has stuck with me and buzzed around my brain for months after reading it.